I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Pistols, prayer, and potluck. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran, and this is episode number 408. Thank you so much for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week again this week. Welcome aboard for those of you who are new. Hope you will stick around and check us out again next week. Maybe go back and peruse the back catalog, all 407 previous episodes, and come back again next week and in future weeks as we roll along and continue this thing we call Armed Lutheran Radio. Today is a special day. We're celebrating VM Day. As you know, if you watched the first and probably the only presidential debate last week, President Biden announced that we finally beat Medicare. Our long and arduous war on Medicare is over, folks. It is Victory Over Medicare Day. There's going to be ticker tape parades, sailors kissing pretty girls in the streets. Well, maybe. I mean, given that we just finished up Sodomy Month, it's more like probably it'll be men kissing other men, but still, there's going to be parades and celebrations, and we'll look back on this day in 20 years and remember exactly where we were when we got this amazing news.
With the COVID, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
So happy VM Day, everyone. Crack a cold one. Say a prayer and a thank you to all the suckers and losers who fought in the great patriotic war against Medicare. Here's to you. Enough of that levity. First off, my apologies for not releasing this show on Sunday. Had a crazy week with work. Pastor Bennett was in Wisconsin, I think it was, last week for the Higher Things Youth Conference, so we weren't able to get together to record. Like I said, I was working all weekend, so we just couldn't put anything together in time for the Sunday evening release. So here we are, a midweek release instead. But before we get started with today's episode, I do want to remind everyone that Armed Lutheran Radio is listener funded. We don't have any advertising. We don't have any sponsors. We're relying on the generosity of the good people who put their money where their mouth is, who appreciate the show and want to see it continue. The members of the Reformation Gun Club, people like Keith from Palmyra, Missouri, Luke from Seymour, Indiana, Jerry and Billy from Deer Lodge, Montana, Donnie from White Bear Lake, Minnesota, Mark from Lake Havasu City, Arizona, Paul from McKinney, Texas, Stuart from Pensacola, Florida, Greg from Holly, Michigan, JJ from Toms River, New Jersey, and Daniel from Chehalis, Washington. Thank you all so much for your support. Thank you for everything you and all of the members of the Reformation Gun Club have done over the years to keep this show going. If you would like to join these awesome people, folks, if you'd like to get exclusive access to some exclusive and amazing content, 400, where did I get that number? Hundreds of hours. I don't even know how many hours. It's well over 400. I don't know where that number came from. It's episode 408. There's hundreds of hours. I've been drinking in celebration of VM Day. Sorry. But there's lots of exclusive content, cool Armed Lutheran swag, invitations to our monthly online hangouts. The next one is coming up soon. We've got a July one that we've got to do in the next few weeks. I'll be moving at the end of the month, so want to get the online hangout here in the next couple of weeks. Those are always fun. We get together with the members of the Reformation Gun Club. Pastor Bennett and Mia join us when they can, and we shoot the breeze, catch up on what's going on in everybody's lives, and talk about current events and adult beverages and shooting and all kinds of stuff. And you can join them. Visit reformationgunclub.com. Check out all the benefits. It's only $36 a year. Sign up today and come join us for our next hangout and enjoy all of the benefits for Reformation Gun Club members. reformationgunclub.com. Okay. I did manage to finally schedule some new content for the YouTube channel, by the way, instead of just being the episodes. I've got some short videos up on the website and scheduled to be released in the future. So go check those out. Please subscribe. One of those, the first short that I released last week, I think cost me a handful of subscribers. Please go subscribe and make up for that loss. And like any of the videos that you see there, that video was about Trump and his policy on abortion. And I don't know if we lost subs because we support Trump despite his policy, or if we lost them because we criticized his policy position. I have no idea. It seems like whenever you're talking about Trump, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. But in any case, that's that. So go check it out at armedlutheran.us/YouTube. Go to YouTube, search for Armed Lutheran, and you'll find us. And look for new videos. There's a brand new one with a funny crime story that surprisingly didn't take place in Florida. That's the latest that was released this week. All right, let's get back to our celebration of victory over Medicare. Did you watch the debate? Let me know if you did. I'd love to hear what you thought. Visit our feedback page at armedlutheran.us and leave me a message, or post a message in the comments for this episode, or on our Facebook page. I'd love to hear what you thought of it. I did not originally plan to watch because I figured it was going to. I figured it'd be a snoozer. I didn't really have any interest in watching, but then I flipped over. Something said, "Go check and see how it's going," and I flipped over there. And once I started watching, I just couldn't stop, because it was like watching a slow motion train wreck, and you can't take your eyes off of it. I heard Ben Shapiro describe it as kind of like watching the Flying Wallenda brothers when they're tightrope walking over, between two skyscrapers or over a volcano. You're really not watching to see the Wallendas. You're really just watching to see if they fall off. And Joe Biden fell off the wire and into the volcano in that debate for sure. The visuals alone could not have been more striking. The split screens were just awful for Joe Biden. He looked pale and feeble and confused. He looked like he was staring off into space, like he had seen the face of death approaching. It was so bad. His appearance was so bad that he made a speech, a very brief, 4-minute teleprompter address yesterday, I think it was, talking about one of the Supreme Court's latest decisions. And they had actually used Tanner on him to make him look more human, more alive. But it just made him look more like Trump. So he looked like the Orange Man. 45 minutes into the debate, the Biden administration was already tweeting out excuses that, he's got a cold. That's why he sounds and looks the way he does. It was an absolute unmitigated disaster. And today there's polling information that have come out, internal Democrat polling information that reveals that in just about every state in the union, even in states where Biden was expected to do well, Trump is now gaining ground or has overtaken Biden or has widened his leads, even in places like New Hampshire, where Biden was ahead, Trump is now leading. And this is a state that, New Hampshire, that Republicans haven't won in 20 years. It's gotten really bad. The debate was just a disaster area for the Democrats, and they have been in a panic ever since. The liberal media couldn't even hide this. They've been openly talking about replacing Biden. They even started talking about it. They started talking about it immediately after the debate. And they were probably talking about it behind closed doors or, in private, not out on the media stage before the debate was even over. And why is that? It's because we all saw, the whole world saw in that debate what you and I already knew. You and I already knew that Joe Biden was a decrepit corpse at this point. And we've been told by the media for months that he's sharp as a tack. He's as sharp as he's ever been. Joe Scarborough, beclowned himself recently talking about how Joe Biden, this was the best Joe Biden we've ever seen. And then this. And now Scarborough is having to admit it's time for Biden to go. We all knew what was going on. They were all lying to us, and now they couldn't hide it anymore. Like most everything that the media tells us, Joe Biden's mental acuity, those stories that they were pitching to us, were all lies, and they couldn't hide it anymore. What struck me after the debate, it didn't strike me at the time because I was just so amazed at how bad it was for Biden. Everybody expected that they'd shoot him up with whatever that cocktail of drugs was that they gave him before the State of the Union. They'd trot him out there. He'd be okay. But it was bad. Somebody suggested that maybe they gave him the shot maybe they pumped that stuff into him too early and it hadn't really gotten into his system yet. So he walked out there and he looked terrible to begin. He got a little better as the debate went on, and then he tailed off at the end because this was I think it was an hour and a half debate. So that's a long time for him to be out there trying to ad lib without notes and without a teleprompter. And it's past his bedtime because we've now found out that somebody else said this week that his best hours are between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m., which means if you catch him after 4, you're going to get what you saw in the debates. Thank goodness nothing bad ever happens after 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Thank goodness for that. But I was amazed in thinking about this afterwards, after I got time to sort of just, sit back and soak in all of the liberal tears and get past the shock and awe of how bad Biden was. What struck me was that gun control, for the first time in a very long while, was not a topic of discussion in this debate. We've been treated to many discussions, if you can call them that, on the topic of guns in just about every debate I can think of. With one side always claiming that the other side is in the pockets of the NRA and that their policy prescriptions, whatever they are, from universal background checks to banning fully semi-automatic firearms to 30-round bullet clips, that those would all end the scourge of gun violence in America. And yet here, we got crickets. So that got me wondering, well, why is that? Why are we not hearing a debate? Why are we not having a discussion about guns at a time when crime is an issue? That was certainly discussed in the debate, or at least shouted about. I don't know whether you could call this a debate, but still, crime is an issue. It was one of the issues that Trump hammered Biden on the border on violent crime, on criminals coming into our country illegally. He brought up the recent rapes and murders of innocent young girls by immigrants that Biden's government had allowed to come into the country. And Biden's response was to mumble something about girls needing abortions because millions of women are raped by their sisters or their in-laws or something. But guns were not part of the debate because guns are not high on everyone's radar right now. Even though crime is very high. And if you look at the crime rates overall are, I think, declining as they have for some time. They're not declining in major metropolitan areas, however, and that's because of the influx of migrants and the defunding of police and police forces' inability to effectively deal with crime based on the way that politicians have sort of handcuffed them. Gun control becomes an issue for voters when the economy is rocking and everything is great, and then we get shocked by some sort of horrific mass shooting. It's the same thing with environmental issues. Yes, the climate debate got a mention in the debate between Trump and Biden, but it was quickly moved away from and pivoted to an economic issue. The environment and gun control are issues of the affluent, to be honest. When times are good and the economy's rocking and wages are rising and inflation is low, people feel good about themselves and their situations, so they tend to look for things to worry about, like the climate, like mass shootings. None of those things, not to say that mass shootings and the climate aren't real problems, but their effect on people's daily lives is essentially nothing. You are far more likely to suffer from any number of ailments or maladies or be killed by any number of things more likely than you are to die in a mass shooting or be affected by a mass shooting. And climate policy and the effect of the climate is more likely to be that it causes your gas and food prices to go up, not that you are impacted directly by the climate. And with all the gun rights victories in the courts lately, which we talked about on a recent episode, having an argument about bump stocks or pistol braces or the right to sell a gun, which is your own property without first obtaining a license from the government, those things are not going to really move the needle with the average voter because those things have nothing to do with their daily lives. The majority of Americans, and I would argue with you, the vast majority of gun owners don't own bump stocks or pistol braces. A lot of them do, but if a majority of gun owners don't own those things, then you can guarantee that a majority of the American people don't and don't care about it. To the extent that guns are an election year issue, it's only because of crime and illegal immigrants and the sense that people have right now the increasing sense that people have that the government doesn't really care about you. The Biden administration, our politicians will leave the border wide open for 4 years and expose you and your family to millions of illegal immigrants crossing the border, higher taxes, higher crime, rape, murder, whatever, in order to bring people in to this country that they hope will be future voters. People are starting, I think, to recognize that police aren't going to be there in time, and lots of people, more and more Americans are becoming gun owners and are waking up to the idea that you are your own first responder. When people are struggling to make ends meet and millions of illegal immigrants are crossing the border taking jobs, and our social welfare system is overburdened, they're taking our tax dollars, they're being, as Trump pointed out, they're being housed in hotels, lavishly fed, while our veterans are sleeping on the streets, while young girls are being raped and murdered just days before the debate by illegal immigrants. That's what gets and holds people's attention, and that's what dominated the debate. And Trump absolutely destroyed Biden on the border and on crime. When people are worried about actual violent crime becoming more common and not focused on those rare cases of mass violence, when they're worried about robbery and muggings and assault and murder and rape, and when the police are demonized and stretched thin and defunded, people tend to be less inclined to be interested in hearing how their own gun ownership is a problem. When you start to realize that owning your own gun might save you from criminals, the same criminals that your elected officials are routinely releasing back out onto the streets after they commit violent crimes, like this Haitian migrant that we saw this last week, who apparently raped a disabled girl and then was released back out onto the street on a $500 bail, you're a little less sanguine about the idea of giving up your gun rights or restricting your access to guns. And as hilarious as the debate was, as great as it was to watch all the leftists freaking out during and after the debate, it's very sad. It's sad that we didn't have two serious people discussing the issues that face the country. It's sad that we had the man who is supposedly the most powerful man on earth, the President of the United States, looking as addled and infirm and lost as he was. We have seen, confirmed with our own eyes, the fact that Joe Biden is not running this country. The Biden family is, but I don't think Joe's doing it. And that weakness is evident to leaders around the world. I'm not sad for Joe. Screw him. His family has been grifting since the day he was elected to Congress. I'm not sad for Jill. She's a power-hungry, soulless ghoul who is basically just keeping Joe upright and changing his diapers so that the gravy train keeps rolling in for her and her family. I'm sad for our nation. What that debate confirmed for me is that if you're the praying type, you might want to say some prayers for the country. Because it's obvious to me more than ever that we absolutely need it. All right, that's what's on my mind today. I would love to know your thoughts. What did you think of the debate? What do you think about the recent Supreme Court decisions and even the newest decisions, not just the decisions on the ATF's rules about pistol braces and bump stocks and the rule about in being engaged in business and sell firearms. But the more recent one, the Chevron deference decision, which basically strips the alphabet soup agencies of their ability to basically interpret law separate from the legislative and the judicial branches. I'd love to know your thoughts about the debate and about those things and anything else. Visit our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback. Leave us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Tune in again next week for more madness. We don't know what it'll be. It'll be something. It'll be good. It'll be fun. Hope you'll join us. Until then, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback or a review on iTunes and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio, a member of the Self-Defense Radio Network.